Jai Hind everyone. Welcome back to your English class. Now some very bright minds had asked me once that why did CBSE prescribe such a book that is entitled Footprints Without Feet? Yes, the title sounds to be very absurd. The title sounds to be very weird until you know the real reason. Alright, let us find out the reason today. And today's topic is one chapter that is again a part of that book, and somehow the chapter shares its title with the title of the book. So again, it is The Footprints Without Feet, that is the chapter's name. So this chapter, Footprints Without Feet, is an excerpt. It is extracted from a novel, okay, and the novel is entitled The Invisible Man. Make sure to take note of this fact that there is another novel by the name of Invisible Man. Okay, there is no definite article the before Invisible Man. Alright, so that is again a novel that is written by Ralph Ellison, and it is based on racism and racial discrimination. So do not miss out the definite article the if asked about this particular chapter being taken from which novel. Alright, so today's class we will dedicate to certain key facts of the chapter and the novel at large. We will also try to find out who is the novelist, that is H.G. Wells. Let me tell you that H.G. Wells is quite a familiar name, and he has written quite popular novels and he's quite popular with his readers. And why science fiction during that point of time? Okay, this was a novel that was published in 1897. Alright, so in the 1800s, we see a resurgence of sci-fi being one of the major preoccupations of all the novels and all the literature pieces. Alright, so we will try to find out why. And the other thing is, in class 9 you have come across a chapter, the very first chapter of Beehive, The Fun They Had. And it was also written on science fiction. Okay, it was a work on science fiction and it was written by Isaac Asimov. Then there is Jules Verne, who had written Around the Earth in 80 Days and other sci-fi novels. Alright, so this science fiction being one of the predominant themes of those times, that is a question that we will find an answer to. So today we will just focus on the key facts of the chapter. Let us find out the key facts of the novel also. So, Footprints Without Feet is the name of the chapter. It has been taken from the novel The Invisible Man. It's a novel that was written and published in the year 1897 by H.G. Wells again. So H.G. Wells has got a very interesting anecdote about his life. So he was born in Kent, England. So born in Kent, England, Wells was a child when he broke his leg, and while resting, he read enormous amount of books which inspired him later to become a writer. One of the most important figures in early science fiction, Wells predicted many technological developments that happened to occur in the subsequent centuries, in the coming centuries, as well as world events like the Second World War. So he was also a visionary. Okay, he could well predict what is going to happen in the subsequent years and certain major world events like the Second World War. So again, he proves his mettle there. The key facts here says, the full title of the novel is The Invisible Man, and the subtitle is A Grotesque Romance. I know you might be knowing what is the meaning of grotesque. Grotesque is something very repulsive, okay, very unpleasant, very morbid. Okay, so it's generally associated with negative terms. What is the setting? Setting is Iping. Iping is a village that is situated in the Sussex district of England. And then we have the genre. The genre is the category of literature to which it belongs, that is early science fiction. And it also is a form of horror story. Alright, so it has certain horror elements in it. Antagonist is again Griffin, and Griffin is the invisible man of the novel. So he is the one who is the reason behind the novel being entitled The Invisible Man. Point of view, third person narrator. Why? Because there is no mention of I or second person you, okay, here in the novel while the story is being narrated. Adaptation, since it was a very popular book, it has been adapted many times. It has been adapted as a 1933 science fiction horror film, 6-part BBC adaptation, and again 1984 Soviet film. So you can well imagine how popular the book was. Okay, and till now there are numerous recent researches that are going on. Now I would like to delve deep on the second topic that I said, that why do you think science fiction was one of the predominant themes of those times, and people were overtly and covertly obsessed with this particular theme. Now let me tell you the historical context and other books that are related to it. I'll start with this. During the Age of Enlightenment, in the 18th century, scientific advancements flourished, changing people's attitude to religion and laying the groundwork, that means laying the foundation for the beginnings of a newly secular era. Okay, so from a religion-centric to a man-centric or a scientific achievement-centric society. So there was a lapse of faith, so the focus shifted from religion and God to something of the manly achievements of science. This was aided by the publication of Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species in the year 1859, which introduced Darwin's theory of evolution. Now Darwin's theory of evolution says that in fact there is, again he focuses on lapse of faith, okay, and secularism, and he says that only the fittest could survive. So the concepts like survival of the fittest comes into context when we talk about Darwin's theory of evolution. So you see 1859 and the novel being written in 1897. Okay, so there is not many years in between. Again we find that this era also witnessed the origins of fascism, okay, tyranny, dictatorship of Mussolini, and hence Griffin's reign of terror. So this is a very familiar term during the fascist era, alright, the reign of terror. If you read the novel in detail, at one point of time, it is Griffin, the invisible man of our story, of today's class, the major prime focus, is telling it to one of the other characters, that is Dr. Kemp, that I want to establish the era of the invisible man, or the epoch of the invisible man, and that is how I will establish or try to proclaim the reign of terror. So this has something to do with his obsession with power. Okay, he was very obsessed with power, and hence we can associate terms like reign of terror. Now we come across the characters involved in today's story. The characters is obviously the invisible man, okay, whose name is Griffin. So who is Griffin? The anti-hero, because here also we came across the antagonist. Here also we are trying to say that he is the anti-hero. He is not a person who is the protagonist. We are not calling him a protagonist or the main hero of the story, even after he being a central character. So the anti-hero and the titular invisible man. Titular means someone that gives the story the title, okay, gives any piece of literature its title. So since the invisible man is the prime focus of the novel, as well as the excerpt that is taken from it, so we will say it titular. Titular has something to do with the title being shared. Was led by his quest for invisibility. He was in constant search for invisibility. It included the ability to commit wrongdoing without consequences. So every time, taking advantage of his invisibility, what did he do? He escaped the consequences. Alright, he somehow escaped being scot-free. Alright, he was not detected, he was not punished or penalized for his misdeeds. Alright, he shows a lack of empathy and shame and a desire to cause harm, and is obsessed with power. Okay, so these are some of the things we will explore in the chapter while we go for a detailed study of the chapter. Okay, again at the same time, he struggles to fulfill his basic needs, because after all he is a human being. Though invisible, he retains the form of the human being himself, and he heightens his misanthropic nature. What do you mean by misanthropic? Who is a misanthrope? Someone who is a hater of mankind. So he shows this attitude in every lawless activity that he is indulged in the story. Alright. Now I would talk about other books. We have already discussed about the historical context, but now we will talk about the other books related to the Invisible Man. Other significant works of early science fiction include Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, because you're all aware of the famous novel Frankenstein, which, like The Invisible Man, portrays a scientific experiment that gets out of control. So both these novels share one commonality. And what is that commonality? That a scientific experiment going out of order, okay, or going out of control. So the end result or the product of the novel is actually trying to destroy the creator or the maker of its own. The question of moral philosophy at the heart of the novel, that means the basic crux of the novel, lies in a question. One question badgers your mind or badgers the mind of the readers. What is that question? Let us find it out. Whether it is acceptable to commit a sin if one could escape its consequences through invisibility. Is invisibility trying to protect you from all the punishments that you should be deserving as a performer of criminal acts? Okay, will invisibility save you? Will invisibility let you go scot-free? Okay, so these are some of the questions that we will explore. The theme is also explored in Plato's Republic and Oscar Wilde's novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray. That was again a very controversial novel. Okay, so we come back directly to the story. Alright, so the story, as I said, is a part of CBSE's prescribed book, Footprints Without Feet. Alright, so now you will understand that footprints without feet has to do something with invisibility. So let us come to page number 26 of this book. The chapter's name is also Footprints Without Feet, as has been already shared. Chapter 5. So it starts with an anecdote, and this anecdote will tell you why this chapter is entitled after Footprints Without Feet. The two boys started in surprise at the fresh muddy imprints of a pair of bare feet. Okay. Now there were two questions that arose in the mind of these two children. Okay, because they were very fascinated by looking at the imprints or the footprints of the muddy imprints on the streets of London. One question was that what is a man doing barefooted in the busy streets of London? So you know how busy is the city of London, right? So there you cannot generally witness a barefooted man. And if at all it is the footprints of a barefooted man, where is the man? So there is no trace of the man. Alright, so these are the two questions that again troubles the mind of these children in context. Now these children, they are utterly baffled by this particular occurrence, by this particular phenomenon. So the fascination draws them to follow one step after the other. Okay, so even if someone becomes invisible, mud is not invisible, right? So it leaves behind certain marks, it leaves behind certain imprints. Alright, imprints is just another word for the marks being left behind, and that again it grows fainter and fainter, and somehow the children stops following it. Alright, so this way they are very fascinated. They try to find out, okay, the man who is leaving behind the footprints, and at the same time they are also wondering what is a barefooted man doing in the busy streets of London, that too in midwinter. And the second thing is all about the introduction of this particular man. Who is this man? Who is the man in context who is leaving behind muddy imprints of his invisible feet? Alright, let us find out that. The explanation of the mystery was really simple enough. The bewildered boys, the astonished boys, alright, the very, very surprised boys, had been following a scientist who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. Okay, so this is the answer to the mystery, the mysterious occurrence, the mysterious phenomenon that we were talking about. So Griffin the scientist, so first time we are introduced to Griffin, okay, we also know his profession and occupation. So Griffin the scientist had carried out experiment after experiment to prove that the human body could become invisible. Finally, he swallowed certain rare drugs and his body became as transparent as a sheet of glass, though it also remained as solid as glass. So the body retained its solid form, but again, the body is after all human, so it has got certain basic necessities. Alright, so we'll try to find out more about Griffin. Till here, he proves himself to be a brilliant scientist, alright, with remarkable achievements, because he he is generally able to find out what is or how is invisibility brought into function. Brilliant scientist though he was, Griffin was rather a lawless person, and this story gives you ample evidences of his lawlessness. Okay, and the first evidence is his landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. Eject him means throw him out of the house, drive him away. In revenge, Griffin set fire to the house. To get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes, because remember, clothes are again very visible. The garments are visible, but the body is invisible. So in order to escape the punishment of setting fire to the house, he needs to remove all the visible things that are attached to his body. Only then he would be able to, escape scot-free. Thus, it was that he became a homeless wanderer without clothes, without money, and quite invisible, until he happened to step in some mud and left footprints as he walked. And that discusses the title of the chapter, and that also gives you an answer of the boys following those footprints. He escaped easily enough from the boys who followed his footprints in London, but his adventures were by no means over. He had to indulge in several other adventurous ventures as well, and they were all criminal acts, they were all misdeeds, okay, they were all evil actions that he ventured. He had chosen a bad time of the year to wander about London without clothes, alright, because you can experience that in midwinter, it was generally mid-January that we are talking about, it's extremely chilly, okay, so in that case, the human body cannot bear this unfavorable cold. It was midwinter, the air was bitterly cold, and he could not do without clothes. So what did he think? In order to fulfill his basic necessities, as had been already said, okay, what did he do? He bumped into a London store, and he tried to afford all the luxuries, all the comfortable clothes and food for himself, because he was hungry, he was devoid of money, he was devoid of clothes, alright, so he was just in the bare, invisible form. Closing time arrived for the store, for the London store, and as soon as the doors were shut, Griffin was able to give himself the pleasure of clothing and feeding himself without regard to expense. Without regard means he did not have to pay the bills, he was not charged owing to his invisible form of the body, so he could somehow, his entry could not be detected, his presence could nowhere be registered, so somehow he could afford all the cozy items for himself. Soon, with shoes, an overcoat and a wide brimmed hat, brimmed is the margins of the hat, that is very wide, he became a fully dressed and visible person. So with the clothes on, obviously, he will turn to a very visible entity. In the kitchen of the restaurant, he found cold meat and coffee, and he followed up the meal with sweets and wine taken from the grocery store. Finally, he settled down to sleep on a pile of quails. So you can find how luxurious and cozy he had been feeling. Alright, but he was careless, he was callous enough to forget about, he was so very indulgent in that cozy atmosphere, okay, that he had forgotten about escaping from that particular place. Okay, so he was chased in the morning. As it was, he did not wake up until the assistants were already arriving next morning. When he saw a couple of them approaching, he panicked and began to run, and they immediately suspected him and they chased him. Alright, so what again he did was to again get back to his invisible form and to not let his presence be registered. He again tried to curate a very escape route. Okay, he tried always to escape. He tried always to move about scot-free without being detected, without being punished for his misdeeds. So what did he do? He again tried to remove all the clothes. Now at the end, what happens is, after removing his clothes, it's the same January air that bothers him. Alright, so he needed to go to some place where he could buy things for himself, garments and some cash to sustain himself actually. This time he decided to try the stock of a theatrical company in the hope of finding not only clothes but also something that would hide the empty space above his shoulders. Okay, so this entire thing, okay, above his shoulders needed to be covered up. Alright, so where did he reach? He reached Drury Lane, that is the theatre hub. Okay, it is now even considered the center of the theatrical world, where the world famous plays are even now staged. Okay, so it is a very prominent place when it comes to theatrics. He soon found a very suitable shop and he bought things for himself. He made his way invisible. He went upstairs and he bought certain bandages for himself. He covered his face and the head completely with bandages. He also bought certain things, certain props like dark glasses, false nose, big bushy side whiskers and a large hat. To escape without being seen, what did he do? He thought that if I will be somehow detected, then I would have been punished, right? So again, to escape this particular punishment of being caught, of being detected, what did he do? He callously attacked the shopkeeper and then he robbed him of all his money. Alright, so now again he had to move to somewhere. Okay, where did he move? What is our new setting? Iping, as I already said. Alright, so eager to get away from crowded London, so there is a change of setting that we witness here. From the crowded London, he goes to the rural, the village, the countryside, Iping. The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter was in any case an unusual event. So he has to temporarily accommodate himself in a particular residence, right? So where did he go? He went to a local inn, okay? And who was the landlady there? It was Mrs. Hall, alright? A stranger of uncommon appearance set all the tongues wagging. That means everyone was very inquisitive and very curious about who is this person completely covered up with bandages and everything. Alright, Mrs. Hall was also suspecting of the same, but since she got ready cash and advance payment, okay, so he allowed, and he tried to be good with his new guest just because he had provided he had provided her with the necessities. So while she was trying to entertain and sound quite friendly with this new guest, the new guest was of a different temperament. Okay, he had a very irritable temper. Okay, and at the very onset, he made his clarifications all the more, okay, clear. What did he say? But Griffin had no desire to talk and told her, my reason for coming to Iping is a desire for solitude. I am here to enjoy loneliness. I do not wish to be disturbed in my work. So he was very rude and very curt in his sayings. Besides, an accident has affected my face. That's why he justified his unusual appearance so that no one suspects him later. Alright? Satisfied that her guest was an eccentric scientist. So altogether, the impression that this particular scientist had formed of himself is that of an eccentric scientist. He projected himself as a very busy, eccentric, weird kind of a scientist. And in view of the fact that he had paid her in advance, Mrs. Hall was prepared to excuse his strange habits and the irritable temper that he had. Okay, so it was somehow bearable because he had already paid. And he also said that, see, do you know, readers, that this particular person had robbed the money after attacking the shopkeeper, right? So he had a limited amount of money stocked with him. Alright, so what did he say? That he said that he was expecting a check, okay, and then only he will further all his payments. So he would proceed with his future payments only after he receives the check. Shortly afterwards, a curious episode occurred. Now you tell me one thing, this is one question that comes even in the boards. Alright, what is the curious episode being talked about? So pay attention here. Very early in the morning, a clergyman and his wife were awakened by noises in the study. So in the study room, they could hear the chink of coins. You know, coins are very sonorous when they are struck against a particular surface. Alright, sonorous is something that produces sound. Okay, so in that case, that very chink of money and coins together made them pretty sure, made them pretty confident that the housekeeping money was being stolen by someone. Okay, and that confidence made the clergyman directly rush into the room and ask that man to surrender. Alright, what do you mean by surrender here? That shows that he was pretty sure that someone was being responsible. Okay, someone was there at the drawer where all the money was kept. So what happened is, then to his amazement, what happened? He realized that the room appeared to be empty. He and his wife looked under the desk and behind the curtains and even up the chimney. There wasn't a sign of anybody. Okay, there was no trace of a human form. Yet the desk had been opened and the housekeeping money was missing. Extraordinary affair. Again, one of the questions that may come for your extract based questions, okay, or 2 marks questions. What is the extraordinary affair? So the clergyman kept saying for the rest of the day. But it was not as extraordinary as the behavior of Mrs. Hall's furniture a little later that morning. So there was another extraordinary episode that took place that day. And somehow both these extraordinary episodes coincided with each other. Alright, and that made this particular eccentric scientist of ours, that is Griffin, the invisible man, being put into suspicion all the more. Alright, let us find out what happened. The landlord and his wife were up very early. What happens is, when you keep your door shut for the entire day and you already make it quite clear that you don't want to entertain any other intruder into your house or into your room because you don't want to be disturbed, what happens is, one day if your landlord or landlady finds the door open, they immediately are driven by curiosity and they go to investigate what are you occupied with, okay, or where are you, what are your whereabouts. Alright, so usually it was shut and locked and he was furious if anyone entered his room, but that day they peeped around the door, okay, they gave a sneak peek and then they found the door to be opened and then they entered the room. So what they found was the bedclothes were, they were not warm, okay, they were cold enough. That suggested that he had already woken up quite early, okay, it was not some recent occurrence that he had woken up just before they entered or something, otherwise the bedclothes would remain quite warm. Alright, so again at the same time they also found that there were certain belongings like the bandages and his belongings scattered in the room. Okay, all of a sudden what happened is Mrs. Hall heard a sniff close to her ear, so she could sense something, okay, some inhalation taking place. Alright, a moment later the hat on the bedpost leapt up and dashed itself into her face. So it struck her face suddenly. Alright, then the bedroom chair became alive. Okay, so springing into the air, it charged straight at her legs foremost. So it, somehow struck her knees, okay, and the legs. As she and her husband turned away in terror, they were always and obviously they were terrified. They are supposed to be so. Alright, the extraordinary chair pushed them both out of the room and then appeared to slam and lock the door after them. Alright, so now you may know that he is trying to take this invisibility as an advantage. As an advantage of what? As an advantage of all the criminal acts, okay, because you are scaring someone to death, okay. I mean, having fun at the expense of someone is not generally fair, okay, it's not just. So what happens is, she is maddened by this kind of terrifying experience that she has. She is almost scared to death. Mrs. Hall almost fell down the stairs in hysterics. Hysterics is a kind of maddening experience. She was convinced that the room was haunted by spirits because she could not find no trace. She could not find any trace of the man and anything. So she was pretty convinced that somehow the scientist was not there. In fact, the room was haunted by spirits. And she made certain statements like, "My poor mother used to sit in that chair. To think it should rise up against me now. Okay, so how is that possible? It is surely haunted by spirits." Okay, and somehow or the other, the scientist is responsible. The scientist is instrumental in bringing up and calling up these spirits into the room. Alright, and this kind of thing was judged by the villagers to be an act of witchcraft. Okay, some kind of evil magic and witchcraft was, according to them, it was at the heart of the cause. It was actually the cause that made her experience so many terrifying activities. But witchcraft or not, when news of the burglary at the clergyman's house became known, the strange scientist was strongly suspected. Okay, because these two items coincided, as I said. Okay, and suddenly what happened is, suspicion grew even stronger when he suddenly produced some ready cash. Because only he was able to steal the clergyman's housekeeping money and produce it immediately. So this kind of coincidence does not generally happen. So the suspicion grew even stronger. The village constable was secretly sent for. The village constable is Mr. Jaffers. Okay, the first name is not revealed, but if you read the novel, it is Bobby Jaffers. Okay, instead of waiting for the constable, Mrs. Hall went to the scientist and charged him. I want to know what you have been doing to my chair upstairs. And I want to know how is it that you came out of an empty room and how you entered a locked room. We did not see you, entering and exiting a room. Alright, so how is it that you're marking your presence and disappearance? The scientist was always quick-tempered, okay? He was of an irritable temperament, as already said, and he was quite spontaneous in, replying this question. Now he became furious. You don't understand who or what I am, he shouted. Very well, I'll show you. Okay, so it's a kind of indirect threat that he gave. Suddenly he threw off the bandages, so, he revealed himself in his true colors. Okay, and what was his true colors? He started removing all the visible garments from his body, the bandages and every other visible thing that was clung closer to his body. And the horrified people found themselves staring at a headless man. So while he was removing the bandages, you can very well see in the picture that is given in your books, alright, that he is removing the bandages and the people are, awestruck. Okay, they are dumbfounded at the very appearance of this headless man. Mr. Jaffers, the constable, now arrived. Now, who is Mr. Jaffers? He is a very dutiful constable. So, if he has received orders, that means he has to fulfill those orders. Okay, so he is very particular about his obligations and he does justice to his profession. Alright, so Mrs. Jaffers, the constable, now arrived and was quite surprised to find that he had to arrest a man without a head. But Jaffers was not easily prevented from doing his duty. If a magistrate's warrant ordered a person's arrest, then that person had to be arrested, with or without his head, not a concern. Alright, there followed a remarkable scene as the policeman tried to get hold of a man who was becoming more and more invisible as he threw off one garment after another. So they did not know where to, grasp him or where to hold him. Alright, so what did he do? He kept on removing the garments and again they did not know where to lay hands on him. Alright, so where to, make that particular grip of the body stronger. Okay, because it is ultimately invisible. So imagine, try to put yourself in the shoes of those people who were spectators. Okay, the dumbfounded ones. Finally, a shirt flew into the air and the constable found himself struggling with someone he could not see at all. Some people tried to help him but found themselves hit by blows. Okay, there were constant hits and blows by the invisible man himself, being a lawless man that he is, and that seemed to come from nowhere. So that came to seem from, obviously it's the invisible man who was hitting them back. Okay, so in the end, Jaffers was knocked unconscious as he made a last attempt to hold on to the unseen scientist. So somehow this time also, the scientist, taking advantage of his invisibility, he escaped scot-free. Okay, he was not being able to be grasped, or he escaped punishment, he escaped all the consequences of his evil deeds that he has chronicled throughout the chapter. Alright, so there were every act of his bore testimony to how lawless a man, a person, or any human could be. So being a scientist, even though he was marked by brilliance, but when it comes to a responsible citizen, he was very, very lawless and in fact a criminal. Okay, so they were nervous, there were excited cries of hold him, but this was easier said than done because it was, they failed at their attempts. Everyone tried to get hold of him, but due to the invisibility, they could not. So by the very virtue of invisibility, he fled from that particular scenario. Griffin had shaken himself free and no one knew where to lay hands on him. But at the end of the novel, he meets his tragic death, okay, because how long will he be escaping? So obviously we get to know that no action, no misdeed comes with a consequence. So we'll discuss the themes at a glance. You will obviously understand what are the themes all about. So the themes are, first of all, the characters include Mrs. Hall. You know who is Mrs. Hall, the landlady of the house, of the local inn where he had taken a temporary stay. Bobby Jaffers is the village constable, a very dutiful and a responsible constable. And there are other minor characters that include the clergyman and his wife, the two children, okay, the shopkeeper that was attacked, who was attacked by the invisible man, okay, our very own Griffin. Okay, so similarly we move across certain themes. The themes are freedom, anonymity, and immorality. What do you mean by anonymity? When you do not reveal your identity, okay, that is anonymous. So when you conceal your identity, when you hide it from others, that is anonymity. So it is concerned with immorality and the question of how humans would behave if there were no consequences. Imagine if there would be no constitution of India and there would be no law of the land, then how would people behave? Alright, so without laws being imposed, without certain rules and regulations being imposed upon humans, all the humans would not do good acts. Some may move astray, some may go and perform certain misdeeds and criminal acts. So there is a particular thing that is very, very important here, that is immorality. Had there been no laws, what would be the fate of the world? By turning himself invisible, Griffin secures an enormous amount of freedom. Yes, he secures a lot of freedom because he is free to do anything. Okay, so I said by the very virtue of invisibility, he is a free man. Anything, free to do evil deeds, free to do good deeds. Alright? He uses this freedom to commit immoral acts. Okay, so he misuses this freedom. He misuses his scientific brilliance. Through his anonymity, okay, through his not being able to know anyone, through his strangeness, what he does is, the chapter produces a bleak view that if there were no consequences, many people would choose to commit evil. We do not commit evil because we know that we would be punished by law. Okay, we would be punished by any particular entity. Okay, whether it be the police or the court, okay, or our immediate family members. So we know that every misdeed or every act that you are doing, every evil act that you are performing will be punished. You will be punished after that. Okay, so there are consequences for everything. Then we move across with the second theme, that is human, science and nature. Now, this chapter explores humanity's increasing ability to manipulate nature. Okay, if you start manipulating nature, it is going to give you very disastrous results. Alright? Through science. So if you try to manipulate nature through science, you are trying to prove your supremacy over nature. But again, nature is something that you need to cohabit with. Okay, so that is also a part of your existence. In chronicling Griffin's experience in H.G. Wells tries to emphasize the extraordinary power of science, but also the danger inherent within this power. Okay, he tries to eulogize, he tries to praise science, the scientific achievements that is very, very, necessary in this point of time, alright, the technological advancement and everything. So science is again a very advancing factor. But there is one thing, if you misuse science, then it is going to give you dangerous or catastrophic results. It suggests the meddling with power. Meddling means interfering with power. And the natural human body can have catastrophic consequences for humanity. Alright, so what happens is, so Griffin's achievement of rendering himself invisible is remarkable. Alright, so it is in the very beginning itself it is said that it is a remarkable scientific discovery that he has done. Okay, but when he tries to achieve mastery over nature, ultimately he fails. Alright, and a conclusion of the story says, it reinstates that limits of human power against nature and misuse of power. So this story is a kind of forewarning to all its readers that you can't prove your supremacy over nature. Nature is something that nurtures you. Nature is something that you need to cohabit with. Okay, so in that case, I will conclude today's chapter by saying that this pandemic is a perfect example of this thing. Okay, so when nature hits a reboot button, we are not able to exploit nature. We are locked down at our homes. Alright, so these are something unusual events that we are facing in these trying times. Alright, so we have to balance, we have to strike a balance with nature. Okay, if not worship nature, we have to cohabit with nature. Okay, so that is what I end this chapter with. And if you have further doubts, you may leave your comments in the comment box, or you may address your doubts in the live classes. Thank you everyone. Have a nice day.